go on Sunday morning in Las Vegas. I'm Brian Feldman, and this is Outta Line. We are here live in the Fox Sports Residential Bancorp studio every Sunday at 8 on Fox Sports Radio, 98.9 FM and 1340 AM, Las Vegas flagship of the Vegas Golden Knights and sister station of Raiders Nation Radio. The we also include social media director Spencer "The Wiz" Ostrovsky.
Nobody beats the Wiz. Nobody beats the Wiz.
Also including producer Chris Magnum Chapman, who aside from producing and being a part of a lot of shows at Lotus Broadcasting, Mags also serves as a locker room reporter for the Vegas Golden Knights radio network and the host of the UNLV football pregame show on our other sister station, ESPN Radio Las Vegas. We are also streaming on the LV Sports Network, and you can watch the show on Facebook Live and YouTube. The page is called Outta Line. That's OUTTALINE. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at Outta Line Fox LV. And since we are live, your calls and questions are welcome. The Fox Sports Residential Bancorp studio line, 702-876-1340.
Hi, this is Bubby, and it's time for What's on Tap.
Tap brought to you by title sponsor Residential Bancorp. Whether purchasing a new home or refinancing the home you already own, Residential Bancorp is the company to turn to for all of your home financing needs. Residential Bancorp, funding America one neighborhood at a time. Call 702-964-5720 to get information on all of the home financing options currently available in Nevada. On tap, yesterday's date represents one of the coolest traditions in U.S. professional sports. Last Thursday, the Vegas Golden Knights wrapped up their best ever regular season, and shortly, one of the main broadcasting voices of the Vegas Golden Knights, Gary Lawless, will join us to talk about their first round matchup, which starts Tuesday against the Winnipeg Jets. The Wiz is going to break down the NBA playoffs, which started yesterday, and as of today, Aaron Rodgers is still technically a Green Bay Packer. Finally, the Las Vegas Aces and will wrap up their current homestand today at the Las Vegas Ballpark on their first winning streak of the season. They've won their last two. That's what's on tap. If you are looking to buy a home or to refinance the home you currently own, contact Residential Bancorp, the company that is funding America one neighborhood at a time. Call 702-964-5720 for details on current home financing options available in the state of Nevada. Guys, great weekend. Last night, man, I missed a really good ham dinner over at Chris's house, which I'm still bummed about. I was playing in an online poker tournament that I qualified for, man. He's got a ham. Now I find out stuffed portobello mushrooms. Man, I really missed out last night. I'm kind of pissed off.
Yeah, did the grilled zucchini on the grill as well. And what else do we have? Some mashed potatoes, strawberry margaritas.
I got leftovers right here.
Yeah. I brought you some leftovers. But
I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I got the because I like.
Why such a big ham?
Because it was cheap.
Okay.
It was like 99 cents a pound at Smith's. So if you can get a ham like that for like $7-8, you go ahead and do it. But normally I do a ham at Christmas, and I tried something a little bit different this time. I used a barbecue, and
only a week removed from Easter. Call it a late Easter ham.
Yeah. You know what? That's probably why it was so cheap, right? You gotta get it ready for Easter. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I will say I normally do a deep fried turkey at Thanksgiving. I have not done one recently because it just got too expensive to do, and it's cheaper for a small family to just order something. But it was pretty good. My wife enjoyed it because it wasn't as salty as the Christmas ham I usually do, so that's good.
Hey, it was delicious, and I love deep fried turkey as well. Spencer, I got to meet Spencer's girlfriend finally Friday night after the show I do on the other station just up the dial a little ways. I got to meet Spencer's girlfriend, and I don't want to say a better half because Spencer's such a good guy, but it's like two good halves making a whole. And the guy deserves it. Really nice girl. The only thing is she told me, Spencer, and I have to call you out on this, they went on a hike together Friday morning, and she said she had to keep calling for Spencer to wait up for her. Spencer, of course, defended that by saying, hey, we were all walking separately. I guess his parents were on the hike. So I just gave him some advice. I go, Spencer, that's one of those subliminal things that you listen to right off the get-go. Avoid problems down the road. Yes. Right off the get-go. When you hear an instruction like that, put it in the bank and definitely use it down the road. But Spencer, Megan, great girl, man. I liked her.
I like her too. And just to say, she is much shorter than me. It's hard for me to walk that slow. That's all I'm gonna say. It's like physically hard for me to go at that pace. That's all I gotta say.
I can understand that. We got to get her some spring shoes or something so she can get another half inch to an inch out of each step so she can keep up with Spencer. She is definitely short, but really cool. We had a nice dinner, and something else really cool. And fact this week. I was looking forward to it because of watching this. I wanted to talk about it. So go ahead, Spencer. Get right to it.
Fact this. If you don't like the facts, take your ass back to bed. Fact this.
On April 15th, 1947, Jackie Robinson made history by becoming the first black man to play in Major League Baseball. His worldwide impact led to a decision in 1997 to retire his number 42 across the game, except on April 15th, which is known as Jackie Robinson Day, when number 42 is on the back of all players on every team. This is one of the coolest traditions in all of sport in the United States that recognizes a person who dramatically changed and impacted what has been called America's favorite pastime pretty much throughout history. Chris, watching the game yesterday again, his granddaughter, Io Robinson, throws out the first pitch. It was just really kind of cool at Dodger Stadium. Of course, the focus is there. That's where Jackie Robinson played his career for the Dodgers. And really cool. It's funny, very early in the game, Bellinger, who now plays for the Cubs, takes away a home run. It ends up 1-0 going into the bottom of the ninth. The Dodgers get a couple runs on, get 2 outs, and next thing you know, a pinch hit. I'm trying to think of who hit the ball. David Peralta hits the pinch hit base hit to knock in both runs. They win 2-1 in dramatic fashion in the bottom of the ninth inning. Could it have gone better on Jackie Robinson Day?
Yeah, it's one of those days where my grandmother grew up a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. I mean, she's long gone, but I know from what my mother's told me that the day Jackie Robinson died, she cried. Like, she loved Jackie Robinson, which is pretty incredible in and of itself, considering all the adversity that Jackie Robinson went through. My grandmother grew up in a pretty, I'll say, not very ethnically diverse neighborhood in Brooklyn. It was basically where all the Italian immigrants were thrown when they moved in. So there was a lot of, racism in that particular area where she was growing up, from what I was told. And I know from her, she fell in love with the guy. Like, she loved baseball. She loved the Brooklyn Dodgers. She cried when he passed away. And she was very, very hurt when they moved from Brooklyn to L.A. But for my grandmother, she could see that the guy was an incredible baseball player, and she respected and appreciated everything he did to get there. I was actually lucky enough to go to one of the Jackie Robinson days. It wasn't a Dodger game. It was a Padres and Rockies game, 2 teams that weren't around when Jackie was playing. But I find it so cool that Major League Baseball has retired his number across all franchises. The last player to wear number 42, I think it's pretty fitting, despite not being a Yankee fan and a certified Yankee hater. I absolutely adored Mariano Rivera. I thought he was an incredible human being.
Perfect last guy to wear the jersey,
and
too.
It's pretty fitting that he was the guy to close out the number 42 in Major League Baseball. But Brian, I mean, Robinson meant a lot to my family, so it's a day that I always am grateful that Major League Baseball goes through, they do this type of celebration of Jackie Robinson and his life and his legacy. Because, as I said, he was a huge part of my grandmother's life, and not just her, but so many people across baseball and in segregated parts of this country. The movie with and unfortunately Chadwick Boseman's no longer with us. That's one that still gets me choked up when I think about it. But the movie he did, 42, I thought it was incredible. It showed a lot of what he went through. I'm sure there's others that I haven't seen, just great movies about his life. But
highlighting the owner of the Dodgers too.
Yeah, Branch Rickey
was just incredible.
Just incredible for Branch Rickey to basically say, you know what, screw this, enough is enough. It's time for us to break down, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna sign a black player, and we're going to. We don't care what the fallout is. It's the right thing to do, and we need to do this, and we want to be the first franchise. And you know, it's something I think the Dodgers a lot of like they wear that with pride, and they should. But the Dodgers have broken a lot of ground, right? And it's an incredible franchise for you know, Hideo Nomo. He was the first Japanese player in many years. And then, of course, Fernando Valenzuela, you know.
Probably next to the Yankees, the most storied franchise in Major League Baseball.
And, you know, I mean, it's a good nod to them as well for basically being the team to break the color barrier.
No question about it. And, you know, you're talking about, you know, more or less, you don't want to say martyred himself because he had the talent to play. So many Negro League players could have had an impact in Major League Baseball, and the game itself would have been at a higher level because some of the best players in the world were not allowed over history up until Jackie Robinson to get into Major League Baseball. Branch Rickey made that possible, and Jackie Robinson, it is just the greatest tribute, again, in the United States, maybe in the world of sports, on April 15th, Jackie Robinson Day, about as cool as it comes. And again, hats off, number 42, man, just absolutely incredible seeing what went on yesterday, and especially for the Dodgers to win the game in dramatic fashion on Jackie Robinson Day. You couldn't have asked for probably a better situation, and just a great day. And like I said, probably one of the greatest days in sports all over the world. April 15th, Jackie Robinson Day. Just an incredible day, and what a great fitting finish at Dodger Stadium yesterday. Spence, go ahead and hit it because I think we got Gary on the phone. Let's get into a nightcap.
Hockey players, as you know, are warriors. They don't give up. They come to play every game.
It's time for Nightcap, a cupful of the Vegas Golden Knights. From highlights to interviews to special events, the puck starts here.
It started at the beginning of the season, and the Vegas Golden Knights get off to a great start at the beginning of the season. Went into their loss.
Had some problems running at home for a little while, but I have never in my life seen an all-star break or a break in any professional sport help a team as much as it did the Vegas Golden Knights this year. That has been a completely different organization since the All-Star break. And I don't want to say different. Again, they started the season great, but 49 of a possible 62 points since the All-Star break. That's just about unprecedented. Joining us right now is the Vegas Golden Knight Insider. You see it on just about every broadcast, hearing about every game broadcast, and of course, Lawless in order. Gary Lawless, really appreciate you taking time on Sunday morning to join the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the postseason this year. 51-22-9, their best season yet in Las Vegas. 111 points, best record in the Western Conference. Gary, what I really liked is the way the Golden Knights closed out this season, having to play right up until the last game of the season and getting the job done when they had to. I think that has to help them going forward into the playoffs.
They were certainly playing really good hockey, and I think we saw down the stretch a couple of really good displays of what their team game can look like when it's at its best. And the home game against LA, where they absolutely swarmed the Kings and gave them nothing, and then again against Seattle in the first game of that back-to-back, the home game here at Vegas, the Golden Knights were tremendous in that game as well. And that style and that, when they play that form of game, they're really hard to beat. And I think they know that, they understand it, and they've been able to do it. If that's the way they play in the postseason, they're going to have a long run.
I agree with you 100%. I was sitting and talking about the LA game. I'm glad you mentioned it. Watching that first period of the LA game, I'm sitting next to Chris Matthews at Channel 8, and we're watching it. And here's what I said on the broadcast. I said, this is maybe the best energy I have seen this team start a game with this season. And what a perfect time to have that kind of energy going forward, and now playing against Winnipeg, who they've had success against, but just huge for that. Gary, the biggest thing everyone's talked about this year, obviously, is the goaltending. 5 different goaltenders have had an impact on this team this year, and a good part of the reason they're there, you get to the postseason, and now you've got Yeah, what most could consider a good problem. What do you see right now? Obviously, Laurent Brossoit is initially going to be the number one guy going into the postseason. What a season he had, a guy that had such good success when his hip finally recovered in Henderson, and then the guy comes to the Vegas Golden Knights and hasn't lost in the time he's been here in regulation.
I don't see it as a problem at all. They've got a number one to me. It's Laurent Brossoit. He's been fantastic down the stretch. He fits Bruce Cassidy's style. He does a really good job of staying in the net. But, he doesn't overcommit and end up making a save and sliding out of the net and having a rebound go to somebody and the puck goes right into an empty net. He makes the initial save, but stays in between the posts so that if there is a second opportunity, which doesn't happen very often against this defense, but if there is a second opportunity, he's still in the net. The puck still has to go through him. Let's go into the background on him. He suffered an injury in his ankle when he was playing junior hockey, and it didn't heal properly. And overcompensating over years, it spread up into his hip, and eventually, his quote is, for 10 years, I've been dragging my left leg around. Now my left leg is helping me rather than hampering me. Couldn't do the splits his entire pro career. He can now. He was unable to install techniques that have advancements in goaltending that have come during his career. He wasn't able to access any of those because his body wouldn't allow him to do it. He was rebuilt. Not only did he get range of motion from that hip surgery, he then went and rebuilt his game and changed it and added elements that he never had before in his game. He's a better goaltender now than he ever has been. He's fresh. He's healthy. He could become one of the biggest stories in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think he's going to have success.
That's great stuff. And Laurent Brossoit, we've seen it in that. We've seen it transition to the ice. What a healthy Laurent Brossoit can bring. And as you said, I think the upside is tremendous. Getting an opportunity to go play against his former team in the first round has to be really exciting for him as well. But Gary, who backs him up now? If everybody is healthy, you've got 4 NHL goaltenders. Eric Patera, who came in
for a short spell, did a good job as well. But with Logan Thompson, Aiden Hill, who seems to be healthy again, has been down in Henderson playing well, and of course Jonathan Quick, a great acquisition, as I said, for what they gave up, which was virtually nothing, to get Jonathan Quick right at the trading deadline. I saw it pay dividends night one, watching Aiden Hill play in net. 50 goals, I don't think was just ironic. I think with knowing that Jonathan Quick was on the bench all of a sudden, it even elevated his game. But who backs up initially Laurent Brossoit if everyone's healthy?
Well, for me, it's Jonathan Quick, not for, to be the backup in the sense of, we may have to go to him because if it's, put it this way, I would start Laurent Brossoit until, and I don't expect this to happen, but if it did happen and you needed to go with another goaltender to start a game, then I would make, that's a separate decision. The number 2 goalie dressing for me right now has to be Jonathan Quick because of his experience. None of these goaltenders, other than Quick, have any Stanley Cup playoff experience. Very limited. Quick has won 2 Stanley Cups and won the Conn Smythe. Having him in the dressing room and on the bench as a resource for these other goalies and a guy that can talk them through certain situations, that's invaluable. Brossoit gives up a goal in a game, the next media timeout, he comes over to the bench, and there's Quick to say, hey, this is what happened, put it behind you, get back in the game, let's move forward. That voice of calm and experience, to me, having that on the bench is, well, there's not many guys, there's only a few guys in the NHL that can offer that, and Quick is one of them. So I would have him as a number 2 for his presence from the bench. If Brossoit, if you need to make a change and start somebody different, well, then I think you have to look at who the options are and address it at that point in time. Because right now, the only options right now Brossoit, Quick, and Hill. Thompson isn't an option at this moment. He hasn't been declared healthy. Hill has. Hill was practicing every day with the team and traveled with the team to Seattle. So that's the way I see it. I would use Quick almost as a coach in this situation, a mentor to help the younger guys who I think Brossoit has the best chance to have success, but he's never done it. Quick can help him get over that hump.
I couldn't agree with you more. I said when they first got Jonathan Quick, I said the playoff experience alone is invaluable. The season he had in 2012 to come from the 8th hole and win the Stanley Cup. And it was, you can't say it was all him. Obviously, there's a team in front of him. But what he did that season was unprecedented and magical. And you saw an elite ability. He carried that forward, got another Stanley Cup with this team. And again, I agree with you wholeheartedly. To have that kind of experience on the bench, you couldn't ask for, and not that they've got a pretty good goaltending coach as it is, but to have a guy like Jonathan Quick there as well, in 37, and again, he seems rejuvenated. One more opportunity to make a run at a Stanley Cup, and that's this year for the guy. And again, going back to the trading deadline, those three players, I don't think Kelly McCrimmon, in the press at least, doesn't get enough credit for the three moves of this year, because to me, they were as good as any team made. Those three players have all had a tremendous impact on this team, and I think we'll continue to see that going forward in the postseason, Gary.
Yeah, I think that Kelly McCrimmon doesn't get enough credit in Vegas for the excellent job that he's done. George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon, they just hung their third Pacific Division banner, or just won their third Pacific Division banner in 6 seasons. And for some reason, some people around here seem to think these guys aren't very good at their job. They're right near the very top in terms of hockey operations. They've taken an expansion roster that that got them to the Stanley Cup final in year one and continued to augment it. Added a true number one defenseman in Alex Pietrangelo, added one of the best two-way forwards in the National Hockey League in Mark Stone, and then went and got a franchise centerman named Jack Eichel. Like, all of these things you normally have to draft and develop and wait for. These guys have done it all on the fly. Sure, don't have to spend assets, but to get, you have to give, and they still have. I did the game in Henderson last night. There's a bunch of good young prospects there that are still coming up. McCrimmon and McPhee have been, for my money, A+++.
No question about it. Well, George McPhee, I mean, people have known about him since the Miracle on Ice and helping be a constructor of that team. And, of course, what he did with the New York Islanders, and look at how good that team has become. But going forward, Gary, if I were to tell you at the beginning of the season, this team may be the best Golden Knights team that we've seen here in Las Vegas yet. And yet when it's all said and done in the regular season, they will not have one guy with more than 70 points and not one guy with 30 goals plus. What would you have told me they would have done?
Well, I did say that this was the best team that they've ever had prior to this season because of, the fact that they have Stone. They didn't have Stone, Eichel, and Pietrangelo in year one, but the high-end talent that is now with this team is superior to what it was in year one. The statistics part, I guess I'm funny. I always look to the one under the W column as the most important. And 51 wins is, that tells you that maybe we don't have the pure individual star like, Edmonton has or Colorado has when you talk about McDavid and McKinnon. But they've got a whole bunch. The sum is greater. The sum of the parts is greater here, and that makes a team. And to win the Stanley Cup, you need depth, you need balance, and you need a team. And the Golden Knights have that right now.
Bruce Cassidy, I think a perfect fit for this team. From the very first press conference, I love the guy. And I thought he was a perfect guy to come in right now with this team. And what the job he has done, the record speaks for itself, the best record they have had. Talk to me about Bruce Cassidy and your feelings about the fit for the Vegas Golden Knights and what he's done to elevate this team.
Every coach the Golden Knights have had, Gerard Gallant, Pete DeBoer, and now Bruce Cassidy, have been excellent. I think that Bruce fits. I think Gerard was the ultimate players coach and a good motivator. Kate was a really good tactician, and I think that Bruce has a lot of Gerard in him and a lot of Pete in him, and he's a little more round from my perspective than the previous two guys. And he is very good technically. He will put a boot to the back end of the players when it's needed, and he does support them and he does care about them. He fits the community. Fans love him. He works really well with the entire organization. He involves the scouting department. He involves the analytics department. It's not just Bruce Cassidy and comes in and closes the office door. He is a guy that works. He's a collaborator. He's not afraid to make decisions. He's a fantastic in-game coach. He's done a tremendous job. They didn't have the same number of injuries as the team did last year. But think about it. You just talked about it. 5 goalies. Stone's been hurt for a long stretch here. He lost Eno first stretch. He lost White Cloud first stretch. There's been disruption. He's never had Robin Leonard. He had to go with some really unknown guys in net, and managed to win 51 games and win the conference and the division in the regular season. My big thing about him, when all is said and done, he finds ways to win games. If a line isn't going, he gets them out of the rotation or he makes changes. He prepares the team for the opposition. Him and his staff, the Golden Knights players, they know exactly what they're facing on a daily basis. He gives them a strategy to defeat it, and then he makes them stick to that strategy. And if they don't play.
One of the greatest coaches of all time in any sports, Bill Belichick, I heard him a few years ago say one of the most important aspects in professional team sports is plug and play. I would say Bruce Cassidy has been so exemplary of that this year, and not just at the goaltender position, but as you said, at finding the right remedy whenever it's needed. Now moving ahead, and finally, you've got Winnipeg coming up starting Tuesday night in the first round. Yes, they've had good success in the 3 games against Winnipeg, although they haven't seen them in 2023. They're 3-0, a couple of close games. Believe it or not, these teams are somewhat evenly matched, and the first line and even the second line of the Winnipeg Jets is pretty formidable. Scheifele is as good of a goal standard, top 10 guy in the NHL this year as far as scoring goals. Kyle Connor can put the puck in the net. Blake Wheeler's a pretty good player as well. And then Connor Hellebuck has the ability to be an elite goaltender at times. What do you expect in this matchup, Gary?
I think it should be a really good series. Winnipeg can score. I don't think they can defend as well as Vegas. And to me, if the Golden Knights are patient and play their game, they win the series. If they get in a run-and-gun situation with Winnipeg, it's going to be dangerous, and the Jets could upset them. So to me, it's all about the Golden Knights. Their team game is superior. They have to get to that game early, and they have to stick with it.
Last question for you. Obviously, it's way down the road. The Golden Knights have some serious first get by each series to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. But you look at the Eastern Conference this year, what the Boston Bruins have done, obviously unprecedented, best record in the history of the National Hockey League. I've always said the President's Cup, not that it's overrated, it's still a hell of an accomplishment to have the best record at the end of the regular season in the National Hockey League. But I said this year's President's Cup winner might be one of the most formidable of all time. And how do you beat the Boston Bruins in a 7-game series?
Well, you're right about the first part of it. It is a long way away, and we'll have to see what the teams look like at that point in time, because health is a huge part of the healthiest team usually wins the Stanley Cup. This is a tournament of attrition, without question. So if both teams are healthy, like they are right now, and they're going in it, it's the same thing for the Golden Knights. They've got to play that style that we saw, that five-man offense and 5-man defense. If they play that, they are very tough to beat, and they'll have a chance against the Bruins. The Bruins will be favored without question. To me, Vegas' team game is one of the very best in the NHL. It's elite. They've got to get to it, and they've got to play it for 16 wins. That's really, to me, the key to success for this group. There's not going to be one guy that I don't expect one player to go on some hellacious tear and be, you know, the solution. I expect it to be 12 forwards and 60 and a goalie working together every night.
Yeah, a team definitely expresses the Vegas Golden Knight. That is a team. But Gary, again, I should say final question. One last thing. Anybody on the Vegas Golden Knights team that you feel needs to really step up for this team to elevate itself to get to the next level? And obviously goaltending, the last line of defense is huge. We know that in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But other than goaltending, who would you say would really need to step up for this team to take that jump?
Yeah, I don't think it's about the individual, as I just said. I really think it's about the team, and they all have to step up. And they play that balanced game that we've seen, where Bruce Cassidy can roll 4 lines. Okay, here's what has to step up: the power play. It's got to get better at the power play. The power play cannot operate at under 10%, and this team expect to win the Stanley Cup. It's got to operate closer at 20%, and I think the return of Mark Stone will be a major contribution in that area.
He is Gary Lawless, the Vegas insider. You hear him on every game broadcast. Gary, really appreciate you taking time out this morning to join the show. You as well. Again, I agree with him on a lot of he said, Chris. I made the comments about Jonathan Quick when they first picked him up, how valuable I thought he was, not necessarily as a goaltender on the ice, but just as overall the mystique of this team, to have a guy that is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, a guy that has stepped up in the absolute biggest way at the most crucial times. And as Gary said, he is like almost a coach on the bench. Not that Jonathan doesn't want to be between the pipes. Any guy in a uniform wants to be in the game, but for him to be there, that is so invaluable right now as we get into the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, obviously bringing the experience of winning 2 Stanley Cups, but they've got a couple of other Cup winners on that team. Alec Martinez with Jonathan Quick both times, and has scored some huge goals in his career. In fact, he probably scored the biggest goal of the season for Vegas Thursday night when he scored the winning goal against the Kraken. But obviously Alex Pietrangelo, and I don't think it gets talked about enough that Alex Pietrangelo had offensively his best season. Yeah. So I mean, like a fine wine, or he ages like a fine wine, right? Like, who cares how old he is?
He's a guy that stays healthy. That's one thing.
I mean, the thing with Pietrangelo is, like, the guy goes out and you know what you're getting from him every single night. Like, sure, you know what? I've seen him get criticized on Twitter a bit, which is dumb. It's like, all right, so what? The guy turned a puck over one time that led to a goal the other way, right? And it's like, but the guy's had an incredible season, and he went through his own personal adversity right around Christmas time. So, for the guy is, and I've heard players say that with the absence of Mark Stone, that Alex Pietrangelo is the guy who's kind of stepped up and filled the void. Man, remember, he was a captain of a Stanley Cup winning team. He was the first person in St. Louis Blues franchise history to put his hands on that Stanley Cup. He knows what it takes to get there. They bring in Barbashev, who was with Pietrangelo when he won the Cup. Barbashev, who, I had the conversation last week with someone about Barbashev, that he's a lot better than I thought he was. Like, I didn't really know a whole lot about him because I don't watch a ton of St. Louis Blues games. Right? The only time you really watch them when they come here, unless you're a Blues fan or grew up a Blues fan. But what I like about his game is he's got a little bit of bark. Like, he's gifted offensively, but he plays pissed off. And I've always found myself rooting for players like that. I like guys who play pissed off. And, I think, let's be honest, though. I mean, if there's a guy who needs to step up, it's Jack Eichel.
I thought Gary would say that. I'm glad he mentioned the power play, because he saved me another segment of talking about how power play is so crucial.
It is. And if you look at Edmonton, how good their power play.
Oh, well, my God.
But the thing is, they tighten up the calls in the playoffs, Edmonton probably won't have as many power play opportunities because they're not going to call the ticky-tack stuff that they call during the regular season.
I'll tell you this,
Whether
Chris.
you like it or hate it, it's just the way it is.
I'll tell you this, Chris. Thank God in the postseason, if the games go to overtime,
Yeah,
you're not seeing a 3-on-3
Yeah.
because Edmonton, in my opinion, is unbeatable against anyone in the National Hockey League in a 3-on-3.
Well,
Maybe
yeah, I mean,
Boston can hang with them.
They've
but,
got,
oh my God.
Like obviously Connor McDavid had maybe the most incredible season we've seen in 30 years.
Incredible.
And Leon Draisaitl, you look at his numbers, and in a normal year, Leon Draisaitl is like a Hart Trophy winner, but he's got to contend with Connor McDavid. So I
Three
think
guys on that team with over 100
Ryan
points.
Nugent-Hopkins,
I mean,
and then you look at
you
how
got
good
one
Zach
Golden Knight,
Hyman's
two
been for
Golden
them.
Knights over 60 points. You've got three Edmonton. Chris, and I want to say this and move. I do want to get on to talking about the NBA playoffs because some pretty cool stuff going on there as well. And I want to get Spencer in here, but I will say this. This season with the Vegas Golden Knights, we mentioned it has been a plug-and-play season. We have seen so many faces and guys like Pavel Dorofeev all of a sudden really materialize as an NFL player and a guy that has what seems to be a really bright future in the National Hockey League. Laurent Brossoit, hearing Gary, a great story about how Brossoit, maybe people don't realize why he wasn't a more elite goaltender. And Gary Lawless kind of just told him that this is a guy, if he stays healthy now, that we may expect big things from the future.
Yeah, he's had Brossoit's been really good.
Incredible.
I mean,
no regular season losses. And when he comes up from Henderson, and for a while he couldn't get out of Henderson because Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson were playing so well.
Yeah.
So, but to me, and I'm saying this right now, the one team besides the Boston Bruins I don't want to see, and of course, you don't have to see them till the Stanley Cup Finals if the Golden Knights are fortunate to get there. It is the Edmonton Oilers. I can't believe I'm saying I would rather see Colorado in the Western Conference Finals than the Oilers. This team, Chris, besides the Boston Bruins, is playing the best hockey in the National Hockey League right now. You can put the Golden Knights in there as well, 49 points since the All-Star break. But this Edmonton Oilers team right now, Chris, is clicking on all cylinders. And the one thing that had been a problem for them during the early portion of the season before was goaltending. That's not a problem anymore.
Well, Stuart Skinner is obviously their guy, but
he's playing really well.
The playoffs are a different animal, and much like the Golden Knights, they've got a guy who is not really experienced in the playoffs. I mean, Stuart Skinner was in Bakersfield last year in the AHL, so you got to see him play here a couple times. But I think the problem is their backup, Jack Campbell, has not been very good for them. So if they get into a little bit of trouble in that situation,
it's a one-pony race.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm with you. I think Colorado, they've got some question marks. Gabe Landeskog is not going to be available for the playoffs. So that's a huge.
Cale Makar
loss.
is a concussion away from retiring at an early age.
I mean, he's obviously dealing with some concussion issues, and I hope that he's able to get back and not have any problems because I love watching him play.
Me too, just not this year.
But the thing is, like you look around the West, and it seems like the two best teams are Vegas and Edmonton. And I will say this, I feel like the Golden Knights are being disrespected a little bit because all the talk is about Edmonton.
Which may bode well for them.
And the problem is the Golden Knights they were able to hold off Edmonton, not because they were so far ahead, but because they played some damn good hockey the last month of the season too. Everyone's talking about how good Edmonton is, but you look at what Vegas has done, and as you mentioned, 49 points since the All-Star break. Like, that's not like something that just sneeze at.
It's an incredible accomplishment, Chris. And again, over 100 points, their best season, 51 wins. And I mean, and the most important thing, again, and we'll end it on this, is they won the games. They controlled their own destiny, and they did something. You know how many teams they say they control their destiny, and by the playoff time, you don't see them anymore. The Vegas Golden Knights controlled their own destiny and took care of business. That, to me, is one of the most important things at this point in the season, getting ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, and let's just hope that they're able to get some guys back in the lineup for who've been out. I think William Carrier, they would love to have him back in there. But they've got a lot of unheralded guys, and you know what? But now it's the playoffs, and it's time for your star players to step up, and we'll see how that goes.
I'm going to say now, and we can all have our predictions. Look, I see the Golden Knights making a run this year. I know I'm being a bit of a homer, and I admit to that because believe me, Dallas, Edmonton, Colorado, all could have something to say about that very easily. I just don't think they have a problem in the first round with Winnipeg. I mean, Connor Hellebuck has the ability to be an elite goaltender, as I mentioned, and we've seen him play like that at times. If this guy stands on his head during this series, well, anything can happen. But I just think the Golden Knights have too much firepower for the Winnipeg Jets. I think they get through this first round. As a matter of fact, I don't know that they're going to lose a game in the first round. I don't want to jinx them, but I said they're going to sweep the first round. We'll see what happens. Overall, it's a really tough road to haul, but I think the Golden Knights get to the Stanley Cup Finals. I'll make a prediction again down the road when they get there, depending on who their opponent is, and I'm figuring it's probably going to be the Boston Bruins. Guys, let's move on. Spencer, I wanted to bring you in today, the NBA playoffs, and part of the reason is, and I'm just going to be straight up, the NBA bothers me. I am not as big of an NBA fan as I have been in the past. Obviously, being from Detroit, so those bad boy teams of the very late 80s and early 90s, and then in 2004, you can see the stud behind me, the blow up behind me of Ben Wallace, a former Detroit Piston. But I just am not. I haven't been enthusiastic about the NBA in a while. I'm a little bit excited this year, Spencer. It's been kind of cool. The runs, the different teams we've seen playing, guys like John Morant in the game right now. When that guy plays and stays healthy, I know he's got some maturing to do mentally and emotionally, but on a basketball court, I don't think he can be much more mature than John Morant as far as his skill set and abilities. But this is going to be an interesting postseason this year. You've got the Sacramento Kings, Spencer, who won yesterday in kind of dramatic fashion, playing the world champion, or I should say reigning world champion, Golden State Warriors, 126-123. What do you see in not just that series, but in this first round? Because really yesterday, everything kind of went according to plan. People will say the Knicks upset the Cavaliers in Cleveland. I said the Knicks were winning that series from the beginning, so not really an upset to me. But Spencer, what can we expect in the playoffs? Who do you like and who don't you like?
Yeah, everything last night was pretty par for the course. You did mention that Knicks game, which I actually made a 4-teamer yesterday and I won. So I was on the right side of all 4 games yesterday. So pretty standard. The Hawks aren't going to do anything. They change head coaches in the middle of the year. The Brooklyn Nets lost half their team, but they were so far ahead in the standings that they just couldn't get out of the playoffs at that point by playing decent enough. So I think the real stories of this, playoffs are going to be, how do the 76ers, Milwaukee Bucks, and the Boston Celtics, when they play each other, what's going to happen there? One of those teams that I have to look at the standings and I don't know is going to have a much easier time to the finals, of course. One of those 3 teams, the Boston Celtics, 76ers, and the Bucks, going to have to play each other before they get to the finals and not in the Eastern Conference Finals. So we'll see what ends up happening there. The Celtics seem to kind of have a chip on their shoulder. I know they have their whole towels of unfinished business and everything like that. They have kind of easy. It's very top heavy in the East, but in the West, it's kind of a little bit more chaotic. That Kings series is going to be great. I love the Kings last night. They had been underdogs all week at home after having an incredible season. Mike Brown's definitely going to win Coach of the Year with what he's done with his team. Really fun to watch. They're one of the most fun teams to watch in the entire league, if not the most fun. And I hate the Warriors, so I'm hoping they lose there. That's probably a series that you can see going to 7. As long as the Kings can win game 2, a lot of emotions in game 1. It's going to come down to if they can actually play professional basketball. There's times where they just play really fast. And if you try to get into an outscoring match with the Golden State Warriors, most of the times you're just going to lose. Steph put up an incredible performance last night in a loss. That's not going to happen every time. So you have to keep an eye on that.
Well, he did, Spencer, but also one of the things, as I mentioned, one thing we've seen from Steph Curry throughout his career, he is a defensive liability at times. And De'Aaron Fox was using him in part of the game. 38 points for De'Aaron Fox, hits big shots down the stretch at the end of the game. Of course, Steph had a 3-pointer at the buzzer to tie the game, but the Kings won it. And that is something, as he gets deeper in his career, Spencer, as Steph gets older, that lack of defensive ability really starts start showing up. And in the playoffs, you got to have your superstar play some defense. And Steph Curry at times just looks like he's not capable of it.
Well, yeah, and any team that has a 2-card combo is great because you can hide players for the most part, but him and Malik Monk, I mean, I think they scored all of their team's points in the fourth quarters, if not like 90% of them. So you try to get away from De'Aaron Fox with Steph by putting on Malik Monk, and then Malik Monk takes it to the rim, and they took a lot of really great advantage of it. And those two teammates from Kentucky, I mean, what a duo! One of the best acquisitions at the trade deadline, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they got him from the Hawks. Has just paid infinite dividends for them. I mean, that guy has turned those two together are turning into such a dynamic duo. It's really cool to see for a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 17 years. Last night obviously ended that streak. It was really cool to see like how, much the crowd was into it and how starved that city was just for anything to cheer about when it comes to basketball.
Yeah, I liked it, and that series was a little bit intriguing to me because, as you said, offensively, Golden State can hang with anybody, and if you get into a shootout battle with this team, I don't care who you are, you take a chance of losing the game because they have such great presence on the perimeter, especially with Thompson and Steph Curry. The guys are just unprecedented as far as what they can do from 3-point land. But the series that I think everyone was looking forward to seeing, even though the Eastern Conference might be dominant to a degree, was a couple of series in the Western Conference. Obviously, starting off the Clippers and the Suns, the 4-5 matchup. A lot of people were very intrigued with that series. I was to a degree too, but I think without Paul George, it kind of weakens that series a little bit. Kawhi Leonard can't do it all for the Clippers, and you really need Paul George in the lineup to help this team overcome the Suns, who've been playing pretty well the last couple of years removed from the NBA Finals. What do you think it's going to take in this series for the Clippers? Paul George doesn't get healthy to find a way to come out on top.
Yeah, this is the most disappointing playoff series because the story of the Clippers this whole time, I mean, since Kawhi Leonard joined the team, is health. And every single year they say this is their year. They're going to get healthy. And then towards the end of the season, you did see Kawhi Leonard and Paul George play together, and they were good. No surprises there. They played really well together. And now here we are again. It comes out that Paul George is missing the first round. So I'm kind of out. I mean, it's not to say that they don't have an extremely talented team. I mean, Norman Powell's coming off the bench. They have Eric Gordon now. I mean, if you go to top to bottom, they have guys who can compete. And obviously they made a nice run with Paul George to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they're not going to get a path like they did this year because the first opponent they're going to have to go through is Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. I know Chris Paul's on that team, but that guy really seems to be towards the end of his career. He's kind of just like a contributor to kind of keep things afloat. I don't see him having a massive playoffs this year. It's going to be on Devin Booker. I think that first run they had to the finals, I think it was still Chris Paul's team to a certain degree, even though that's not really fair to say because he wasn't with the team his entire career.
Well, he disappeared when they needed him the most.
Well, that's been the mark on his career like the whole time. That's why he doesn't have any championship rings with all those Clippers teams or even made a decent run, you could say. So I'm kind of out. I think that the Suns are going to have a challenging. It's not going to be a sweep, by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't know. It would have to be a crazy Kawhi Leonard thing. And we've seen that before in his career. But we say that every year. Oh, we've seen them do it before. We've seen Paul George do it before. We've seen Kawhi Leonard do it before. But then they never actually do it in the past 5 years. So at some point, I think it's going to be in the past. We'll see. Maybe Kawhi Leonard turns into an MVP again.
Yeah, when he won an NBA title with the Toronto Raptors, that was a better, more well-rounded team than this Clippers team is. I don't think he has the ability to carry a team like he did when he did Toronto because he wasn't alone. And I think more or less, especially without Paul George there, he's kind of on an island, and it's going to be a real tough get him to beat the Suns team. But I will tell you, this team in this part of the country that everyone's been waiting for is to see what this Lakers team can do out of the 7-hole. Now that they seem to be, everyone seems to be there and healthy. What can this team do? And unfortunately, a team that I was looking forward to and the team that I like, even though sometimes his immaturity off the court bothers me, Ja Morant is one of the most exciting players to watch in the NBA, maybe in the past couple of years. The Grizzlies definitely got it right getting him with the second pick and won that draft by a mile. Zion Williamson is a whole conversation for another show as to a guy that might be one of the biggest busts in NBA history if this guy cannot start playing basketball at an elite level like he was supposed to. But again, that's a story for another time. Talking about this Grizzlies team, as great as John Morant is, Spencer, as fun as he is to watch and as good as he can be, without Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, this isn't the same Memphis Grizzlies team. And I'll tell you what, the Lakers could actually take them out in the first round.
They could. And I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, so I'm a big Grizzlies fan. I'm a little bit nervous. The Lakers probably had the best trade deadline in the entire NBA, essentially churning over half of their roster, getting Russell, getting Malik Beasley, guys like Troy Brown. It's just their team doesn't look the same. I mean, their roster is different from top to bottom, and obviously it's paid like extreme dividends. And really, it's crazy. I mean, D'Angelo Russell is supposed to be the centerpiece of that trade, and you go to that playing game, he was on the bench in the fourth quarter. So they're kind of operating on a different beat. Rui Hachimura was also another move they had. They kind of just put guys in when they need to, and it's kind of a unique situation how much they've gelled. You have to give a lot of credit to their coach. You have to give a lot of credit to any coach who coaches LeBron James. I mean, the crybaby will complain about anything when it comes to his coaching staff, but the guy's done a really great job. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really good series. I think it could get ugly too. The Memphis is no stranger to ugly. Dylan Brooks likes to bring that with him. They've already had a lot of controversy with Shannon Sharp, so something like that's going to happen on First Take even once. But what I'm really hoping, and this is probably the biggest story of it all, is how much has Memphis matured since then? That was a long time ago, this stuff with Shannon Sharp. I'm pretty sure that was pre-All-Star break. So if that kind of situation happens again where things flare up, will the Grizzlies show that they are a seasoned team who is gone further and further in the playoffs as each year has progressed? They went through the first round this year, and now, the trend would be to get even further, maybe go to Western Conference Finals. But if they get into their head, if they start getting into these media fights, with these other teams, they really have no chance against a team led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But if they stay mature, this is a lazy Lakers team. They don't get back very often. They complain all the time. This is a team that Memphis, I think, could beat in 5 games if they take it seriously enough, maybe 5 or 6 games. We'll see what kind of Memphis team comes out in this series today.
Yeah, I agree with you, Spencer. I think Memphis is going to win game 1. I think the Lakers are going to win the series. I just think with Anthony Davis, LeBron James both being healthy, they've got some good role players on that team as well. The Lakers are going to be a tough out in the first round for the Grizzlies because they are hampered. But I think game 1, so many people are expecting the Lakers to go in there and surprise them in game 1. I think Grizzlies win game 1, but Lakers win the series. You've also got that game's at noon today. You've got the Heat and the Bucks. That should be an easy series for the Milwaukee at 2:30 today. Then again, we talked about the Clippers Sun. That'll be at 5 and 7:30 tonight. The Timberwolves play the Denver Nuggets. I'm a little bit interested in seeing that series as well. But moving on, guys, as I mentioned, I kind of teased at the beginning of the show. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Again, Aaron Rodgers still, again, if the Green Bay Packers want to use any of the capital that they acquire in this trade, say a second-round pick, and they want to use it in time for the draft this year, they would have to get this done again by the NFL draft. Beyond this year's draft, it is tough to determine what that pick will be valued at, because you have to believe that the Jets with Aaron Rodgers will be a better team next year, and the pick will not be as lucrative next year as it is this year. The Green Bay Packers will otherwise owe Aaron Rodgers $58.3 million. He's got the option bonus by the start of the season. They will not want to pay that, so you've got to figure he will be moved by then. And at that point, it's now much to do with the Jets, how bad they want him in camp, Chris, before the start of the season.
Yeah, it's one of those staring contests, right? Whoever blinks first. Both teams here, and I will preface by saying I am a Jets fan, but I think both teams are probably being a little ridiculous here. First of all, the Packers are stupid because Aaron Rodgers clearly does not want to play for them. They owe him a ton of money. They've pumped up Jordan Love's tires like he's going to be this next great quarterback, and you and I both saw him in college, and well, I'd still rather have Aaron Rodgers. And then from the Jets' perspective, it's like, look, Zach Wilson's garbage. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually. I had high hopes for the kid, but he's not a good quarterback. And maybe he'll get there with time, but you cannot, because Mike White's gone, you cannot go into next season with Zach Wilson as your quarterback if you plan on on contending for a Super Bowl. Look, Robert Saleh is a great coach. He's already proven he's a really good coach. And if you're the Jets and you screw this up, not only are you going to lose Aaron Rodgers, you're going to lose Robert Saleh because you're probably going to screw up and fire him. And then he's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to have the backing of the ownership and the team. Look, I think the deal will get done. Both teams need to get it done. I don't know what the holdup is. I mean, let's just hope that for both teams that they're able to come to some kind of compromise.
I think it'll get done before the draft. The Jets got the 13th pick. The Packers got the 15th. They'd like another second-round pick, especially losing Aaron Rodgers. Arizona Cardinals, Budda Baker and DeAndre Hopkins also want to get out of there. We'll talk about that before the draft. And as I said, the Aviators won their last two games. They wrap up their home game series tonight against the Salt Lake Bees, 12:05, I should say, this afternoon. Then they're on the road for 6. Want to thank Gary Lawless for joining the show, Spencer the Wiz Ostrowski for always doing his thing and helping out. Good segment on the NBA playoffs today. And, of course, our guy behind the wheels of steel, producer Chris Magnum Chapman, always does a great job. I'm Brian Feldman. This is Out of Line. We'll be back next week, 8 o'clock, same time, same place. See you then. Bye-bye.